giants in our lives, giants of pride, giants of sickness. Maybe that's your giant. Could be these struggles that you're having with your marriage or finances. Maybe it's the giant of hopelessness, discouragements, whatever. There's so many, really a lot of giants that we do face. Would you not agree? And so today, I want to talk to you about this idea of hopelessness. And I want to talk to you about this giant of hopelessness because I want to tell you it is real. It is real. But what I would like to do is for us to focus on these two words, unleashing hope. Unleashing hope. And that's what we want to do today. That's what I want to do is basically to talk about unleashing hope. In the book of Psalm chapter 77, if you want to turn your Bibles there, beginning from verse 1. And Psalm 77 is page 1209. So, yeah. And let me pray. Father, you are an awesome God. We are so grateful for our conversations today and just the teaching that you are about to teach us, Holy Spirit. I said it earlier, unless you show up, unless you breathe in me, unless you help me, there is nothing I can do with an eternal impact. And so I'm completely submissive to your leading. I also prayed for a heart of humility and teachability. Lead the way. Not Angelo, just you. Just you. Just you. So I abide in you. Touch your people. Touch them. You love them so much. You love them so incredibly. In Jesus' name. A Jewish boy in Germany, written off as unteachable, who has hope, although he had hope, changes our understanding of the universe forever. Albert Einstein. A soldier tortured in Japanese prison camps for years, for a lot of years, but who never lost hope, returns to America and lives a life inspiring millions of people. Luis Zamperini. A burn victim told he will never walk again, but who has hope, sets a world record running the mile. Glenn Cunningham. A musician who is so just a genius, who goes deaf in his prime, but somehow he found hope, composes a lot of these amazing, incredible masterpieces that stand the test of centuries. Ludwig van Beethoven. An innocent prisoner, beaten and shipwrecked, but also who had hope, writes the most of the New Testament, Apostle Paul. A paralyzed child who responded with hope. Imagine this, a paralyzed child. But he responded with hope. Would later respond to Mr. President Franklin D. Roosevelt. What am I sharing here today? There is something about hope. Would you not agree? There is something about hope. Hope liberates. Hope motivates. Hope initiates. And hope activates. It should be on the screen. Next slide, please. Hope liberates. Hope motivates. Awesome. There you are. Now think about that for a moment. I want you to just kind of stay there for a moment and just kind of look at that. Hope liberates. Hope motivates. Hope initiates. And hope activates. And now let me ask you this question. How did these people overcome their very discouraging, hopeless situation, it seems like? In the midst of their incredible challenges, in a bad circumstances or situations, they somehow found hope. But then we know that the reality of hopelessness is real. Would you not agree? It's real. It's all around us. It's inside this church. It's inside every churches. It's around our community. It's inside our homes. Hopelessness simply means this. It means beyond optimism or hope, despairing, just in a desperate situation. Do you know that between 1999 and 2014, the suicide rate in the U.S. rose by 24%, marking it a 30-year high in every age group except for older adults, who have a high rate to begin with anyway. Suicide rates among girls, look at this, ages 10 to 14, tripled. American Indian females had the largest increase among all ethnic groups. Look at this, 89%. Another trend, a rise in the number of Americans killing themselves with firearms. Now, these statistics are somewhat depressing, would you not agree? They're frightening, and they demand an answer as to why so many people become so hopeless. They get to a place of hopelessness that they see no way out besides death. Well, here are some troubling Nevada statistics about suicide. Do you know that Nevada has the fourth highest suicide rate in the nation? In the nation. Nevada, our own state. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for Nevadans ages 15 to 24. More Nevadans die via suicide than from homicide or HIV/AIDS or car crashes. Do you know that? Firearms are used in 53% of suicides in Nevada. Now, behind these numbers are really tragic stories, would you not agree? And we're talking about someone's child. We're talking about a grandparent. We're talking about a mother, an uncle. We're talking about people that are just so special. That God created them in His image and likeness. That God said in Psalm 139 that they were fearfully and wonderfully made. But somehow these people have names and had lives they somehow couldn't cope with. Many of our senior citizens with silver-colored hair who really worked hard. They raised their families, celebrated birthdays, laughed at TV sitcoms, and they had many friends. And so you wonder, what would cause a 50-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 10-year-old to feel so trapped that the only way out was death? Getting to a place of hopelessness, folks, is real. It is truly a silent killer. So now, how do you get to a place of hopelessness is really the question we need to ask, don't we? We really need to ask. Now, imagine for a moment in this picture that your life, perhaps it seems like it's a long life that is just full of drought, dry, lifeless. Everywhere, it seems like everywhere you look, the soil is just cracked and dusty and lifeless. It is like it never rained there. It seems like you look at your life that nothing will grow out of your life. Seems like crops or trees would never grow again. But listen to me though, that if you have lived long enough, that even the longest droughts can be broken by a rainfall. There is hope. There is hope in your situation. There is hope in every situation, folks. Do you know that having hope is so vital, is so important in your life, in my life? It's so essential to life. In fact, in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13 tells us this, and now these three remain. Paul said, faith, and then what? Hope. And love. So hope is so amazing. It's just really valuable. Having hope is very, very important. Would you not agree? And we're talking about this idea of Goliath, the giant. And going back to the story about David and Goliath and the people of Israel, isn't it interesting? Now, let me ask you this question. Why is it that the people of Israel found absolutely no hope of defeating their giants, or this giant specifically, Goliath? They found no hope. Whereas David, this young dude, right? A young dude, somehow he found hope and said, come on, who is this dude? Send me, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to defeat him. I'm going to slay him. How come he found hope, whereas the people of Israel and even King Saul didn't? Well, the answer is very simple. Look at here. It was in what they were focusing on. It was in what they were focusing on. It should be up there, Faith. The people of Israel were so focused on the giant, and so they found no hope in their situation. Whereas David was so focused on God that he found hope in defeating the giant. Right? Amen. In the book of Psalm 77, this writer Asaph, the writer tells us that his journey is really just a very interesting one. It seems like this dry, lifeless. He felt like drought in his life was so just real. And somehow, in this journey of hopelessness, he found hope. He basically found himself to a place of hope. And so in the book of Psalm 77, come out of the depths of where God, chosen people, the people of Israel were in exile. And if you are very familiar with the story of how the people of Israel was so disobedient and so just constantly just disobeying God, and basically God's protection and God's blessing left the people of Israel in a sense, and basically they went into exile. Now, imagine this thought of having hope. How in the world would you be so encouraged and hopeful when you were exiled? When your home, Jerusalem, was destroyed, completely destroyed, and so many people of your own family are dead, and now we're slaves. So a lot of them were slaves. In the first part of this idea of this writing, in the book of Psalm 77, is really the reality of Asaph's situation. He said, I cried out to God for help, verse 1. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. Can you just imagine? Just his agony. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated in my spirit. Look at this, grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. When you suffer, friends, when the circumstances of life are so brutally hard, painful, and sorrowful, do you ever find yourself wondering if somehow God has forgotten you? Have you come to a place in your life when it's just so dry and drought and lifeless that you just start asking, God, really? Are you serious? Do you even love me? Have you abandoned me? What's going on here, God? And if you have asked those questions, if you were in that moment, I just want to let you know you're not alone. Because Asaph felt the same way. He was crying out to God in deep desperation. He groaned. He was growing faint. He was so troubled in every way. In this chapter, Asaph, though, taught us what to do when we find ourselves in the same position of hopelessness. The second thing is this: the reality of his thoughts and questions. He then said, I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated and my spirit asked, will the Lord really reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? Has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? In God's fatherly providence, Asaph's suffering was such that his one and only option was to seek the mercies of the Lord. But as he began to do that, his wearied soul wandered into this territory all too familiar to suffering saints. In his hour of darkness, friends, Asaph began to question the goodness and grace of God. Have you ever found yourself questioning? And because you were in these tight circumstances, so desperate and weighed down, so overwhelmed with grief or sorrow, that you began to ask these questions. I mean, I remember my wife, Annalisa. Can you just imagine just finding out that your wife is going blind? In fact, a month ago, we went to San Jose, the only doctor in the United States, in the world that could help her, or there's another one in Germany. 2 out of the world that could help her. And this doctor said, there's no hope for you. Nobody else can help you. I cannot help you. Nobody else out there can help you. You're going blind. Can you just imagine for a moment? I mean, you hear that? About when we started this journey of just finding out my wife's condition, I had those questions. In fact, with those questions, I wasn't careful that I didn't do any of what Asaph did. And we're going to learn more about what he did. But with all these questions, really, God, after I've given my life, I've surrendered my life completely. I had dreams. I had all these things that I wanted to do in my life, and I had given up all of that to serve you. Really? You're going to do this? I mean, what's going on here? Are you really? I mean, seriously? I mean, the last time I know that you loved my wife. Why are you allowing my wife to suffer this much? I had those questions. And I became angry and bitter. I was mad at God because I wasn't careful. Friends, Asaph began to question God. Seriously? God? I mean, don't you care? Have you forgotten us? What happened to your promises? We're in exile? Really? Are you serious about this? I mean, don't you care? Don't you love us? Didn't you call us as your people? Have you had those questions before? The third part of this chapter is really what would help all of us in this reality of who God is and what he has done. Then Asaph said, then I thought, to this I will appeal. The years when the Most High stretched out his right hand, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all your mighty deeds. Your ways, God, are holy. What God is as great as our God. You are the God who performs the miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm, you redeem your people. The descendants of Jacob and Joseph, the waters saw you, God. The waters saw you and wreathed. The very depths were convulsed. The clouds poured down water. The heavens resounded with thunder. Your arrows flashed back and forth. Your thunder was heard in the whirlwind. Your lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, through the footprints were not seen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. And that's how he ended his misery, by reminding himself of what God has done and for who he is. When I was in this journey with my wife and just seeing my wife suffer, I came to a place of really just complete surrender after just being bitter and angry. God just simply spoke to me, and you know the story. When I was just bitter and angry, he said, "Son, your problem is that you think your love for your wife is much greater than my love for her. Your problem, son, is this, is you think and believe that your love is greater. I just want to let you know, son, that before she became your wife, she was already my daughter." Amen. And when I heard this, God just spoke those words, I came to a place of surrender. In fact, then God just allowed me to be reminded of all of the things that he has done in my life, in my wife's life. All of the wonderful miracles of his grace that is sustaining my wife and sustaining me. I mean, if you see my wife, you don't think she suffers a lot? I'm telling you, she's suffering as I am speaking right now. She's got some issues health-wise. We just don't understand. And she's hurting. I mean, just hearing her moan and groan every night. But you know what? We came to a place of understanding the grace of God. And we just say, "Father, your grace is sufficient for us." Because it was sufficient for us all these years, and it's still sufficient for us today. Friends, I just want to encourage you that you are not alone in this journey. Perhaps you look at your situation and you look at your marriage, there's just no hope. There is hope. And maybe you look at your finances, you're like, "Man, there's no hope in here." I want to tell you there is hope. And you look at your physical health, and the doctor just tells you that there's no hope for you. I want to tell you there is hope. There's hope in every situation. And maybe you look at your daughter or your son who's basically just rebellious and doing their own thing, and you're like, there's just no hope for him. Look at him. He's a drug addict. He's going down. He's going to die. There's just no hope. I want to tell you today, there is hope. There is hope. Amen. I want to tell you, friends, there is hope. There is hope in every situation. And I just want to encourage you with this. That if you find yourself asking some of these questions and just questioning God's goodness and faithfulness, realize that in those moments, what is the most important is not that you're asking those questions, it's how you answer them. Our fleshly, sinful tendency, look at this, is to turn inward when we suffer and we start focusing on our own feelings. Well, how many of you would agree that feelings can be so deceiving? Right? I mean, feelings are so deceiving. What if I just wake up and I'm feeling angry and I just want to hit people? I mean, you don't go by what you are feeling, right? That's right. You go by just understanding the faithfulness and the goodness of God. And I just want to say this. Asaph avoided that temptation of really focusing on his own feelings. And so we must do the same thing by turning away from self and flesh and toward our God in faith. So turning away from self, heading towards God. Just like David and Asaph, they both took their eyes off their giants and they put it on God. So let me ask you this question. Where do you have your eyes on? On your giant? Look at this on the screen. The more you look at your giants, the more it becomes bigger and stronger. But the more you look at God, the smaller and the weaker your giant becomes. So it is really a choice. It's your decision and mine. If you're going to look at your sickness, if Annalise and I would just look at her condition, guess what? That's going to just overtake us. That's going to overwhelm us. And if you look at your situation, your condition, you look at your giant, you focus on your giants, I want to tell you, it will become stronger and bigger. And that's why I want to encourage you today to start looking at God. That's only when the giants become smaller and weaker. And eventually you will be able to defeat your giant. When David stood in front of this 9-foot man who was so skilled in battle. And here's a little dude. Come on, with this stone in a sling? Come on. And even Goliath looked at him and said, really? Are you serious about this? I mean, hello? Is it really, seriously? This is all you got? A young boy. Do you know I can eat you alive? Right? But then David wasn't looking at the giant. Because if he looked at the giant, Goliath, guess what? He's going to be so strong and so overwhelming, so bigger, right? So big that he's going to say, I'm out of here, right? But then we understand that he looked at God. His eyes were so focused on God that when he stood in front of his Goliath, all he saw was his head being cut off because of his faith in God. Amen. I want to just encourage you today. Where are you going to start focusing on? Are you going to continue to focus on your giants? Or you're going to make a change and start focusing on your God who can help you defeat your giant. In fact, you can knock him out with no problem. And today, it's just so good to be able to walk in freedom, even though the doctor said there's no hope. Guess what? No hope? Well, the last time I checked, my hope is alive. Amen. My hope is alive. I mean, I just want to tell you, friends, that all is not lost. All is not lost. If you feel like your life is so dry and cracked and whatever, just lifeless, I just want to tell you that you can move from hopelessness to joy. You can. And whatever situation you may be in, you can move from hopelessness to joy, so all is not lost. That's right. And the second thing is that you got to find real hope. You got to find real hope. And I just want to tell you, I'm not talking about false hope. That's right. I mean, so many people, they try to find their hope. They think that they can find it in money, in success, in career, or power, or sex, or drugs, work, good paying job, whatever stuff, relationship. So they say, you know what? This is not working, so I'm just going to divorce you and I'm going to find somebody else to make me happy. That is false hope. Amen. I mean, it's just a certain look, right? It's so big right now. Just look at, turn on your television, go to Walmart and look at all those magazines. It's all about the beauty and how you look. And so many people are just diving into that and saying, hey, I got to look better, blah, 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 because they somehow find their value in that. I want to tell you, it's false hope. That's right. Finding real hope, friends, is really about Jesus Christ. That's our real hope. It's having a relationship with this God who created you and me, who loved us so much that he was willing to come to this earth to die on your behalf and mine, who the one who paid for the penalty of your sin and mine. And you might say, whoa, 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 whoa. I heard Jesus. I don't want the religious stuff. Friends, I don't want the religious stuff either. Amen. Because Jesus did not come here so that you and I can have a religion. Jesus came here so that you and I can have a relationship with God. That's right. Finding real hope is only through Jesus Christ. And the third thing is this, friends, is that not only that you got to find real hope, is I want to remind you that Jesus is the living hope. And going back to what I said earlier about finding this real hope, friends, hope really refreshes your life and mine. It does. It refreshes your life and mine. In fact, there's just a beauty about knowing that God can refresh your life. In fact, I was reminded of John 10:10. When Jesus said, I have come to give you what? Life. Not cracks, lifeless, dry life. Look at this picture. Just imagine a life of just in abundance. Because Jesus said, I have come to give you life, not cracked, lifeless, drought life. I've come to give you life so that you don't have to have any of this drought, lifeless, dry life. And guess what? This life, I want you to have it in abundance. Isn't it amazing? And friends, the beauty about this Christ being our living hope, you have to remember this at all times. And it's just so amazing to see my wife to go through this journey. And a lot of uncertainties. She's been, I tell you, it seems like she's always at the doctor's office. And she was there again, getting more blood tests, not knowing what's going on with her physical health. For many months, she's just suffering with so much of pain, headaches. I mean, just, she can hardly walk sometimes. But you know what? I'm just so amazed of her life. Because she understood that it's not her. But she's got this incredible life in her, which is the life of Jesus Christ. That her grace is so sufficient, is just more than enough for her. In fact, I see in my wife, and she understands that her hope is living. Because Jesus is living. And you can have the same thing. I just watched my wife. Man, I'm telling you, in this journey, I have learned a lot from her. That I can honestly, truly have a living hope. Because my Jesus and her Jesus and your Jesus is alive and alive forevermore. Are you with me? Come on, give him praise. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, I want to leave you with this. Verse 16. Therefore, we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away. We don't want to hear that, right? But that's just a reality, that you and I are wasting away. It's supposed to happen. You're supposed to get old. You're supposed to. And you young people, one day, just wait. Yeah, just wait. It's just a matter of time. You'll be like, I was once young, and I am no more. Yeah, be excited. And look at this. Therefore, we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet, look at this, inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So what do? We fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. Come on.
Good word. Amen.
And Paul said it so way better. You got to unleash hope, folks. You got to unleash it. This hope must be unleashed in your life, in mine. You got to give hope and unleash it to many others that you know that are just hopeless. You got to tell them about the promises and the hope that they can find in Jesus Christ. Are you with me? He is the living hope. Amen. That's right. So he says that set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. I mean, my wife and I, just looking at the situation and her condition, we could just dive in and say, oh, look at that. But no, we just refuse to focus on that. I mean, we're not saying that just denying her condition. I mean, we go to the doctor and trying to figure out what's going on. But guess what? We're not so focused on that, because guess what? If we are focused on that, then all of a sudden that becomes bigger and stronger, right? And then we're going to be so overwhelmed and paralyzed. But we don't want to do that. We want to focus on God, because God is way bigger than her sickness. Are you with me? God is so bigger. It's just so big than whatever is your situation and condition. He is way, way bigger than all of that. Amen. Are you with me?
Amen.
Amen.
Well, wow. In Colossians 3, in verse 1 tells us, since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things, again, above, not on earthly things. And if you are struggling, let me remind you again, you got to unleash hope. And how do you do that? Just like what Asaph did. He began to remind himself of the promises. And not only that, he began to look back and saw the goodness and the faithfulness of God over his life. That's the things above, right? You got to set your minds on things above. And lastly, reach out for help.
Amen.
Reach out for help. There are brothers and sisters here that could pray for you and could talk to you. You don't have to do this alone. Are you with me?
Amen.
I just want to tell you that hope liberates, hope motivates, hope initiates, and hope activates. And let me just encourage you. You start unleashing hope. Are you with me?
Amen.
All right. Do you receive this today? Awesome. Bow your heads and close your eyes.